Rules of public speaking and chew gum. I don't know why, but I'm going to. Today's message is not remember and rejoice. It is remember and be prepared. But this is an interesting time. We now are at the beginning. We're at the start again. Bereshit literally means in the beginning. The parashah begins with Genesis chapter 1. It goes through chapter 6. And it's about coming back full circle. And some of us don't like to relearn what we've already learned. But interestingly, the way God works is we learn new things by relearning what we've already learned. So all year, we've learned and lived the cycles of the Torah, and the fall feasts seem to reach this pinnacle of where God's outpouring comes upon His people. The idea of the fall feast, you start with the new year, everybody's excited, and you go into this stage of Shavuot, there's Rosh Hashanah, there's Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. Sukkot is the final outpouring of the presence of God, according to the Scriptures, the way God's Spirit is revealed to His people. But in Rosh Hashanah, He comes and He reveals Himself as a king. In Yom Kippur, He comes as the king to judge. On Sukkot, He's judged, and everybody is practicing the outpouring and is enjoying the outpouring of His presence. Well, then the outpouring is over. And it's time to start living again. Because we went through these big feasts and this great time of the presence of God. And now it's time to start again. And after we go through that process, after a series of weeks performing Cheshbon HaNefesh. Cheshbon HaNefesh means a self-appraisal. And we spend a few weeks in tshuva, in repentance. We begin repeating the cycle where God wants us to remember. We just got finished self-appraisal. We just got finished repentance. But it's interesting that we could repent and the next day forget. Next day, completely forget what just happened. You go about your way, I go about mine. We start living our lives. But God says, now I want you to remember where you come from. It all ends, and we have to remember where we come from. And so today's parashah starts with the creation story in Genesis chapter 1 and 2. It moves on to the story of the fall of man. Because God, we just spent some time repenting for our fall. And so we could come to a point where we feel good, right, about ourselves and where we're at. But forget that the evil tempter is just a second away to pull us back into that state that we were in prior to the Cheshbon HaNefesh, prior to the tshuva, prior to the outpouring at Sukkot. There he is, lurking in the trees, waiting to catch us in a point of weakness. And so Genesis 1 and 2, it brings us back to the accounts of the creation story. And in chapter 1, it proposes to present the transcendent God of creation. Chapter 1 of Bereshit takes us to a point where we see God as separate from everything else. He's this transcendent God. He's not in concert with anyone, but He's just commanding and things will occur. This provides humankind, us, man, you and I, with the realization that God existed before the beginning. That before there was anything, before the earth was formed, there was God. He created all things from a divine spark. So we learn, come back to the understanding that, okay, who are we? We've done a lot of self-introspection, but now let's look and see what we actually believe. So we believe in the creation story, which says 6,000 years ago or so, God decided that the earth would be formed and made. Not millennia, not millions of years. But 6,000 years. So we have to reconcile that in our brain because we learn a lot different, right? When we go to school, we learn that the earth is millions and millions and millions of years old. And everything evolved. But in the Bible, it says that the earth is just thousands of years old. So there's clearly a conflict. Humankind has rationalized the 1,000 years, and we start to say, well, it could be millions. We don't know. They weren't really positive in the Bible. They didn't give us a pure direction. So we rationalize science and religion together. But the point is that we have to come to terms again theologically with what we believe. That's what the purpose of today is. This Shabbat, for all Jews around the world, is to rationalize theologically. Okay, well, let's come back to the basics. We just spent a whole year. I'm tired from self-appraisal. I'm tired from repentance, and I'm tired from looking at myself and my own wickedness. Okay, I'm done doing all of that. Now let's think about what we believe here. And then there's chapter 2 of Genesis, and it transitions its attention from God onto man. So the first chapter was all about God and creation, and just creation as an event that happens outside of us. Chapter 2 then talks about and transitions its attention to man, and specifically humankind's relationship with God on the earth. This chapter sets the stage for God's love. It sets the stage for an intimate relationship with his creation. It makes God approachable. It gives God, it's anthropomorphic, right? It gives God human traits. Whereas prior to, in chapter 1, there's no human traits to God. Okay? But chapter 2 provides us with a way to look and see God from our own eyes. But it also gives insight into what we call the crown of creation, you and I. We are the crown of creation. Chapter 2 is not simply another creation story like chapter 1. It presupposes much of the previous account in order to deliver its message. But in both chapters, God is seen as sovereign, with the world as the product of his perfect will. Chapter 2 stages the relationship that we must begin to repair as a result of our failure in embracing our free will over God's divine will. Free will is, of course, a positive attribute given to man by God. Again, one of the very first messages that we learn in this very first Shabbat of the year, that we really start reflecting on what we believe, is to understand that God gave us free will when he created us. That means we can do what we want. That means we can choose. We can choose Yetzer Hara or Yetzer HaTov. We can choose the inclination to do evil or the inclination to do good. So free will is a positive attribute that's given to us by God. It reveals God's desire to trust and interact on a deeper level with his creation. The mere fact that he gave us the ability to choose shows you God's desire to be in relationship with you. Not his desire to just simply command you and dictate to you, but rather to sit back and watch what you will do. It's awesome as parents. You take your kids to the playground or to the mall or to school with their friends, and you just want to sit back and watch what they do. And you're continually amazed, and you have in your mind what you want them to do when they come across the bully, for instance. It's really sad, but if my daughter comes across the bully, I want her to punch them in the face. That sounds terrible for me, but never be bullied. All right, that's my motto. Bullying kills children. It destroys their spirits. Never be bullied. But you sit back and you watch it and you think, do the right thing. And unfortunately, I think do the right thing. It's not what God would want me to think, right? Punch him in the face. But I'll watch my daughter if she gets bullied or if she gets pushed by an older kid, and she reacts more like her mother, not like her father. So her mother would just turn and go somewhere else, right? Probably come over and say, that kid's bullying me, so I'm not going to play with him anymore. Well, that's probably the right approach, not to play with him anymore. You shouldn't give them their own medicine. But you watch it and you think to yourself, well, that's the right thing to do, and you're proud of that. I remember we were all at a camping trip in Eliana. One of the babies got hurt. The door was slammed in their face, and it split over her eye. And everyone was screaming at the kids, who did this, And everybody blamed everybody. And I walked upstairs and I looked at my daughter and I could see it in her face almost. And she says to me, Daddy, it was me. I did it. And I thought, how awesome that I didn't have to ask her. I didn't have to scream at her. She just chose to tell me the truth. It made me as a dad feel great, right, that my daughter's doing the right thing. God's similar to that when he's dealing with us. He watches us as we're presented with situations. And he sees what we will choose. And he's either happy or he's disappointed based upon whether or not we lean Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov. But the point is that the fact that he's given us free will gives us presents to us the idea that he truly does desire to be in relationship. And it's interesting, this free will that he's given us. Because historically, this has been the centerpiece of our failure. This free will is the centerpiece of man's failure in relationship with God. It's caused us to fail him. It's resulted in us rejecting his perfect will always and continually. As we get older, we think to ourselves, well, we start making better choices. Unfortunately, some people they make bad choices, and then they continue to make bad choices, and they spiral into complete Yetzer Hara. Whereas others, you wrestle with it every day. Paul, I believe, wrestled with the inclination to do evil every day. This concept of flesh and spirit fighting against itself, he wrestled with the inclination to do evil. And evil can take many different forms. Evil can look right. Evil can sound good, but in reality, it's not what God would have us to be doing. The sin of Adam, according to the rabbis, had certain grievous results for him as a man and for the earth. According to certain rabbinic texts, it is believed that the Shekhinah left earth after his fall. We've talked about that many times, that he was cloaked in the illumination of the presence and Spirit of God. And when he fell, that illumination was ripped from him, and he realized his nakedness. It is believed that he himself lost personal splendor, that his beauty became ugliness. I remember, as a young kid, there's a picture of me in 6th grade, I think. And they have this church window looking background when you go to school, and they take your photo, right? And they put backgrounds to it. Well, my background was like this church window. I don't know why they chose that, but it is what it is. And like my whole life, I remember hearing, "Look how angelic you look." I think it was the church window. But my mom used to say, "You look so angelic and pure," right? Well, you compare me now to then, there's a significant difference. Age, experience, it changes you. Your splendor maybe goes away. So it's believed here that his personal splendor, his idea, as you grow old, your purity begins to go away. You get tainted. Here, he was tainted with impurity. He was deathless, but now he's no longer deathless. And he lost what was believed to be a gigantic stature. The idea that he was a giant and became a small man. All men were doomed from that point on to die. That was the first judgment. So many people think they're not going to be judged. You're not going to be judged. Reality is you will be judged. The first judgment is death. It is appointed for all man to die once. That's what the Bible says. That all man must die. So escaping death, like everyone wants to, isn't real. It's not even possible. Simply because it's the judgment we all must face. Now, what we're fighting to avoid is the death of our spirit, the death of our nephesh, the soul that lives inside of us. So we're fighting daily that our nephesh can avoid death, which is the second death, right? We don't want that death. But all men were appointed to die. But we're not going to escape this common fate. The old temptation of the serpent suffices to bring this death to all humankind. The point here is that the serpent's temptation hasn't changed. It's out tempting man today to destroy their soul. The serpent is still slithering about on its belly, looking for ways to slay your spirit. That's the battle we're in today. We seemingly have not come much farther from where Adam and his wife Eve were in the Garden of Eden. The difference is the battle has changed. It's shifted from the external to the internal. And the interesting thing is that at the time of Adam living in the garden, they literally were walking in the internal. They were not walking in the external. Their internal soul allowed their flesh to die. They didn't realize the battle was here. And the battle was here. And that's what killed the flesh ultimately. But humankind fights this tempter, and he daily faces his accusation as a result of its sin. Satan, Hasatan, the adversary, the tempter, is the incarnation of all evil, and his thoughts and activities are devoted to the destruction of man, so that the adversary, or the impulse to do evil, Yetzer Hara, and the angel of death are one in the same. Satan and the angel of death are the same. There's no difference. It's the same goal. So it's believed that the adversary descended from heaven, falling from God's grace and leading astray mankind. And it's also believed that he will again ascend and bring accusations to God against mankind as God stands before us on that day of Yom Kippur and judges us all. We should daily seek to repair the breach of the relationship that exists between God and ourselves, which was deceitfully designed by the serpent and ignorantly established by Adam. The breach between God and ourselves, the breach in our relationship, was in fact designed by us, built by us. And we used the blueprint that the serpent created to build the breach. Isn't that interesting? Man allowed the serpent to deceive so much and so well that now there's this wall between ourselves and God in the flesh. In the spirit, however, we can repair that breach. We could destroy that wall, break it down, and build a ladder to God. And though we live in the darkness, that is to say that we live in the flesh, we cannot allow the blinders of the flesh to stop us from realizing the light which does still permeate the heavens around the throne of God and ultimately cloaks those that live in the Spirit, as it did the first Adam in Eden prior to the fall. Adam was believed to be illuminated by the Shekhinah. He was guarded by the presence of God's Spirit. And when he fell, that presence was stripped from him. The illumination that surrounded him, the light, it ran swiftly from him and left him in darkness. For those of us that have met our Mashiach, and those of us that have embraced his law, have found hope in the verse 1 Peter 2:9 that tells us that we are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, and a peculiar people, that we should show forth the praises of him who hath called us out of darkness and into his marvelous light. Each of us that have accepted Yeshua as our Mashiach, that have taken of his Pesach, and who have been joined with him in the mikvah as an outward expression of our faith, have been plucked from the initial darkness experienced by Adam and his helpmate Eve, the moment that Adam realized his failure to keep instruction to the king. We have been pulled from that darkness the moment we say, Yeshua, be our king. Yeshua, be our Mashiach. It's the foundation of our faith. To remember, to come back to the beginning. And the beginning for us is to know that Yeshua is our Mashiach. He's our Savior. We've ate of his Pesach. We've taken of his body. We've joined with him in the mikvah. It's the foundation. And we're now living in the spiritual because we've invited him. We're no longer should we rest in the things of the earth, but we're invited to build our treasures with the King in his celestial kingdom in the future Olam Haba. When the world will return, when the world will change, when God will bring down his heavens to us. There we are building a house and we don't even realize it. Today, we're building a home there. We don't know the home that we're building. but it's there. We have an inheritance that we're storing up for. We don't realize that inheritance that we're storing up, but it's there. And when we get there, we're going to see the inheritance that we've built. Acceptance of the Mashiach is only the beginning. The acceptance is only the first step. But with the acceptance, you automatically receive a gift of righteousness. This gift of righteousness entitles you to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. When you take Yeshua as your Messiah, you're now afforded the right to eat from the tree of life. The tree of life is said to be known to keep you alive forever. Adam was ousted from the Garden of Eden because God said we must kick them from the garden lest they eat from the tree of life and live forever. The purpose of eliminating them from the garden was that they would not eat of this tree. No other reason. When you accept Yeshua as your Mashiach, you're now given the opportunity to eat from that tree. You can eat from that tree every day. Every single day, you have the opportunity to eat from the tree of life. The Bible says, "He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God." Yeshua is the way, he's the truth, and he is the life. He has said to us in his word that we attain eternal life once we have eaten of the tree that bears the fruit of life. The tree which is in the midst of the garden of God. Yeshua invited us to feast on him in his Pesach. He explained to his disciples to take and eat. "This is my body which is broken for you." Yeshua was, according to John, the Word made flesh. And when Yeshua invited us to eat of him, he was inviting us to eat his word, to eat his Torah, to eat his law. As he did with Ezekiel before us and many others like him, we are to take and eat of the scroll that he has provided us in his word so that we might have life everlasting. His word provides us the fruit in this day and age now, prior to him returning. His word is as the tree of life. We eat of his word that we might have life everlasting. When I eat of the word of God, I have eternal life. Life eternal comes as a result of the forgiveness of sin, and death ultimately comes as a result of sin. Thus, if my sin is forgiven, then I will achieve and realize eternal life. The aim of every believer is to avoid and run from sin altogether, so that you can live in complete communion with God and the Spirit on earth. The sin will bring death to your inward parts, but the Word of God brings life to your inward parts when it is eaten. So as you sin, your soul, your conscience, your nefesh, it becomes seared. Your inward parts begin to die because sin becomes normal. The things that you hear, think about it. My dad's talked about it before. And, back in the day on television, they used to, if there was a shooting on the television, you would see a gun, you'd see it get shot. Then it would go off from that screen, and you'd see a man laying down. And you had to put two and two together, that the gunshot and the man laying down, but you never actually saw the death. Now you're watching murders, and it's normal to us. It's like, you put on the television, it's a normal thing. Our consciences are seared to that. But if you bring back some of the old folk, and they come back to life and they watch what's on television today, they would probably gasp. Before there were 3 channels, ABC, NBC, CBS. And then like at 11 o'clock, it would turn into fuzz, right? Remember, it would go off. Now, it's on all night long, and there's 2,000 channels. Like, I get mad. I call them. I said, look, I ordered 2,002 channels. I only have 1,900. What's going on, right? This is ridiculous. So our consciences are seared. It's death to the inward parts. Our innocence dies. You know, it's my picture when I was young, and it's my picture today. And they're like, wow, that's you. We lost our splendor. We lose our splendor as we sin. And so here, we're able to eat of this tree of life. It enables us to withstand the temptation of the adversary. It empowers us to trample upon snakes and scorpions as they rise to ensnare us. The fact is that we have access to the tree of life for healing of our inward parts and for life eternal through our Mashiach and His Word. The tree of life, the Word of God, gives us healing to our inward parts. If you're not reading the Word of God, you cannot get healing for your inward parts. Your soul will continually be tormented. Your mind will not be able to connect truth. And so your truth, what you believe to be true, will not in fact be true. And so there's people running about, frolicking and acting as if they are speaking truth, but they've not truly been in the Word of God. Revelation 22, John sees a vision of the future, which is to provide us hope and to build our faith, to believe that what he has said is true and will come to pass in our futures. Whether while we're on this earth or from the grave, Yeshua will save his people from death, even those in death's grip today. It said, he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the midst of the street of it, on either side of the river, was there the tree of life. It bare 12 manner of fruit. It yielded her fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. There shall be no more curse, but the throne of God and of the Lamb shall be in it. His servants shall serve him, and they shall see his face, and his name shall be in their foreheads. And there shall be no night there, and they need no candle, neither light of the sun, for the Lord God giveth them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. These are encouraging words for all of us to know that the King is coming again. But while we are yet on this earth and subject to the curse upon man, forced to toil and labor and experience pain and childbirth, we are susceptible to the wiles of the adversary and need to have our loins girt about with the belt of truth in order to discern the temptations of him that seeks to destroy the beloved people of the King. The fall of man was not an isolated moment in time. The fall of man did not happen once. It is a continuous stream of reality that God experiences day in and day out as his people continually to fail him routinely. And they embrace the things of the dark with open arms as they sing praises to him out of the corners of his mouth. The fall of man is a daily reality to God. Man is continually falling. That's why we have to embrace the word, the tree of life, which is Yeshua. Each of us are put to the test. We're tempted, not by God himself, but by the chief adversary, who we now call Satan. He is Lucifer, the rulers of the fallen angels, celestial beings that once served our King and Lord. And in Jewish thought, this function of Hasatan are there's three reasons for the function of Hasatan. He had a mission, he had a battle plan. You and I are his enemy. And his battle plan was basically three things. He would tempt us, he would accuse us, and he would ensure our punishment. That's his battle strategy. Tempt them, accuse them, and ensure their punishment. The fact is that while these are considered the functions of the adversary, these are his only playbook. This is all he has. These three weapons. The first of these is temptation. If you're able to overcome, what's the Bible say? I will give to those who will overcome the ability to eat from the tree of life, which is in the midst of God. So if you are an overcomer, you will eat from the tree of life. What are you overcoming? The temptations. The tempter. If we overcome temptation, then we're not susceptible to accusation. Unless upon false pretense, because he can always accuse us for something we didn't do. But you're not required to experience punishment if you overcome temptation, and accusation cannot play a role, because Yeshua will stand there in your stead and say, "This is my beloved son and daughter." Why today would we talk about this? Because we're starting fresh. We're starting a new year. And to start the new year with Breshit, you have to know, you have to overcome this year. Overcome what? Overcome temptation. Why? So you're not accused. Well, what happens if I'm accused? Then I get judged, and if I'm judged, I get punished. And if I'm punished, I can't be in the midst of God. And if I'm not in the midst of God, I can't eat from the tree of life. And if I can't eat from the tree of life, that means I can't live eternally in the presence of God. So getting our minds right for the year is important. If we beat the adversary at the battle in the beginning of the war, then we will break down his devices, and the weapons that he has hidden in his storehouse will not work. And next year, when we come to Yom Kippur, we will not be beating our chests so hard, because we lived a righteous life. Matthew chapter 4, it says that Yeshua was led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. Now why? Well, because he had to be. Well, why did he have to be? Because we are. And in order to bear our sin, he had to experience life as we live. And so here, he was taken up into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. And the tempter came to him and said, "If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread." And he answered and said, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God." Now that temptation, was it the temptation to stop fasting and eat? No. That's not the thrust of that at all. Well, he's fasting, he's supposed to not eat, and he tempted him to eat. Now, it wasn't about eating at all. It was about using his power to turn a stone into bread. He tempted him to misuse his power for his own gain. And Yeshua says, I'm smarter than you because I'm God. I'm the Son of God. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. I will not misuse the power that God gave me. And it said the devil takes him up to a holy city. He sets him on a pinnacle. And he said unto him, If you're the Son of God, cast yourself, for it is written, He shall give angels charge concerning thee. And in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. And Jesus said unto him, It is written again, Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them, and said unto him, All these things I'll give you, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. And Yeshua said, Get behind me. Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him alone shalt thou serve. You hear that deception? The deception here is just no different from what he did to Eve. If you eat of this fruit, you'll have the knowledge of God. You'll be like God. Well, he's right. You will be like God. You'll know the difference between good and evil, because that's what God had. The knowledge of the good and evil. So he was correct. But what he didn't tell her is that your fall will cause you to be separate from him. And here with Yeshua, he says, he takes him up on this high mountain, and he tells him to kill himself. Jump off. If you're the Son of God, the angels will swoop down and scoop you in their arms. He says, don't tempt God. The second deception was interesting, because he tried to deceive him as if he didn't have all the kingdoms in the world. If you worship me, I'll give you all of these things. And Yeshua's answer was good. He says, you shall worship the Lord thy God, and him alone you shall serve. He didn't even touch the kingdoms. He could have said, do you not know who I am? I'm the Messiah of all the world. These are my kingdoms. These are mine. But rather than saying, these are mine, he took the high road and said, did you not know you should only worship God and God alone? A humble comment from a man who had no requirement to be humble. So in the beginning, the adversary attacks the weaker vessel, Eve. And it drove Adam to sin. The adversary's mission is to overthrow all that is good, all that is holy, all that is righteous. It was he that attempted to thwart the giving of the law to the people of Israel through causing the people of Israel to build a golden calf. Remember, no one looks at it this way, but when the people cried out for a calf, they cried out for Aaron to build them this calf so that they might worship. Did you ever think that that was the voice of the devil? Did you ever think, because at the time, think about it, Moses is up on the hill getting the Torah. He's getting the 10 Commandments. And while God is giving Moses instruction for his people, the adversary is creeping in. And he almost won, because what did God say? Your people, Moses, have defiled me. Your people, Moses. Moses says, not mine, but yours, O God. They're not my people. These are yours. God's saying, no way are they my people. The adversary almost won if it wasn't for the grace and mercy of God. The adversary could have won. He tempted them to build an idol when he had just finished telling them, have no other gods before me. Because remember, before he carved it with his finger into stone, he spoke the words to the entire body. You remember that? He came upon a mountain, thunderings and lightnings, and there he spoke, I am the Lord thy God, have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not blank, thou shalt not blank, thou shalt not blank, thou shalt not blank. Continuing, and he gave it to them, and they all died and resurrected and died and resurrected and died. Remember the story? Well, he goes up the mountain. He's only up there a few days. It's not even been a month. And in less than a month, they're already building an idol. Unbelievable. Do you understand now why it's important to remember? Do you understand now why it's important for us to remember? We just come off of these great feasts after performing Cheshbon HaNefesh, our own self-appraisal of our soul. But within a matter of less than 30 days, it's possible that you can forget all that you have done and wallow back into the seat of sin. Oh, we kept the feast, guys. We did good. Now it's time to go live our lives again until next fall. And that's what we do. Everyone wants to go to the party. No one wants to stay and clean up. You don't want the dirt. You don't want to ignore it. You want to cover it up. You forget about it. So this golden calf was built, and Satan tried to destroy what God was doing when he was giving them the law. Because the law was going to bring to them life. It was going to bring them the ability to be in the presence of God by showing them the path toward righteousness. Hasatan said, I don't want them near God. I don't want them walking toward him. They're doing a good job. They've been raised in Egypt for 430 years. I've had them in Egypt worshiping idols. And now the God of Israel is going to show up. I had them for 430 years. And now he's going to give them away. Interestingly, the way, the Torah, means that he's one step closer to his defeat. So he's trying to destroy it. It was Hasatan, it was the adversary, that whispered into the ear of Sarah, causing her to doubt the promise of God to Abraham. When God explained he was going to multiply his descendants as the sands of the seashore and stars in the sky, Satan whispered seeds of doubt into Sarah to fall to temptation and offer her handmaid, Hagar, to Abraham for her to bear a son. The very son that has caused pain for all the people of Israel for all these many years. Believers and those in the tribes that have not yet come. Hasatan planned a strategic attack on the house of Job. Job was a righteous man, a just man in the eyes of God and all the people. And Satan wanted to prove Job to be a wicked man through causing him to curse God by providing opportunities of pain and heartache in his life. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 tells us not to be ignorant. And it tells us that all of our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea. They were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them. And that rock was Yeshua. But with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to intend that we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted, not to be idolaters, as were some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. They didn't remember. You come to the party, and then you go off and you play. It says, no, let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. That fornication was idolatry. It was the golden calf. Neither let us tempt Messiah, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. Now all these things happened unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore let him that think he stands take heed lest he fall. There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that which you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way of escape, that you may bear it. Flee from idolatry. Temptation will exist for us on this earth until we are found in the grace and arms of the Messiah after his return. The battle is on the spiritual stage of warfare, and we must win. James tells us in addition to not let any man say that he's tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man tempted, when he's tempted, he's drawn away of his own lusts. The enemy uses our own weakness. He tempts us by our own weakness. The adversary is the representative of evil upon the earth. And we must be strong in the word, which is the tree that bears the fruit of life, in order to withstand his devices. Eve was not strong in the word of God. Adam was the responsible party in the fall because he had intimately spoken with the Lord and received instruction from him. There is a flaw in the flesh of man that causes man to stray from instruction. Only by the blood of Yeshua can that flaw be healed, as we overcome through submission to his authority. People, without submitting to the authority of Yeshua and embracing his ways, we are subject to the beguilement of the adversary. There are too many believers creating their own interpretations of the word and paving roads of understanding for others to follow, which is ultimately causing others to fall into a ditch. These are blind leading blind. You have to have discernment. You have to have discernment of what is God and what is not of God. What is holy and what is profane. In our own community. You have to have discernment of the people that you're talking with. Strangers that may come among us and bring their ideas, their interpretations. Ask the Lord to give you discernment to know the difference between holy and profane. It doesn't take memorization to know what Yeshua expects of you. What is moral, what is right, what is good. The whole duty of man is spelled out for us in Micah. Doing justly, loving mercy, walking humbly. What is humility? Eat of the tree of life today and every day, and it will protect you from the adversary. The adversary can still beguile even those that have been close to God. Eve and Adam, they walked with him. And yet he was beguiled. She was beguiled, and Adam had sinned. Remember today. Do not be wise in your own right. Do not be prideful in your belief. Do not think that you have something that others do not. Humility. I have nothing that none of you, that you guys don't have. We're the same. We're all on a journey in our own community. We are having issues with people believing unscriptural things, being led astray by men that are not following the truth. To walk justly, to love mercy, to act humbly. Harming in our own community. These things I'll allow my father to talk on. But discernment is easy. It's easy. You show love to all men. And in every state that man is in, you show them love. Whether they're confused, whether they're lost, whether they're on the right path, you show love. You love mercy, that when they do you wrong, and when they harm you, and when they do the wrong thing, you do what God would do. Understand and show mercy. There's a thin line between judgment and mercy, people. But there is both. The true judge judges mercifully. Humbly. What does it mean to be humble? That's a lifelong pursuit. That's something that all of us will pursue for our entire lives. It's forever. I mean, we'll never truly come to the understanding of humility. We'll always be coming closer and closer to it if we seek it, but the point is that it's a lifelong pursuit. But I hope that you can discern the difference between those that are humble and those that are not. A great and mighty king can stand in front of the adversary, who he will squash like a bug, and act humbly. When he's deserving of all praise, he's deserving of all worship, he's deserving of everything that he should have, he himself took the back seat. And when one of his disciples were angered for him, and when one of his disciples decided to play judge, do they not know who you are? Do they come to you, the King, the Messiah, and treat you this way? I'll cut off his ear. And Peter, this great man, rises up with a sword. He cuts off the ear of poor Malchus. Poor guy. In judgment, you come here to get the king. And he cuts his ear off. And what does Yeshua do? Now, this was a priest in the temple. He cut the ear of a priest off. You know, he would never be able to do his service again because he was maimed. And Yeshua knew he'll never be able to serve in the operation of his duty again. He picks his ear up. He puts it on. He heals him. Not only because Peter did the wrong thing, but because he was thinking of the one who came to get him. Humility. That's humility. It's nice to have a sword. It's nice to have a spear. It's nice to think that you're representing this great God and you're judging for him. But that great God that we serve is merciful. And he's humble. We have to have discernment, people. I hope that when you hear from these teachings at Rosh Pinah, from this bima, that you know what we mean when we preach. If you think we are preaching to go stand on a street corner with a sword, then we have failed. You are to stand on a street corner with love, with mercy, with humility, with justice in your heart. That's what Yeshua expects of us. And if we have done something to misrepresent the message of the Word of God, please forgive us. We're beginning again today. Today is Bereshit. Today is the remembrance of the beginning. What today is let's reflect upon who we will be for the future. Who will we be this year? This year, remember and be prepared that the tempter will come. The tempter will deceive. He will accuse. And he will seek to have you punished. You avoid accusation by living the word. You avoid punishment by walking humbly, justly, and loving God in mercy. That's it. Today's the beginning. And I want all of us to understand that. But there are people, tempters, in the world that are drawing people away from the real truth. Do not be deceived. Do not be tempted to follow that train. And if you are, please come to your community. This is your community. Talk to your brothers and sisters. Talk to your rabbis. And let's heal the brokenness. That's what this year is. Remember, be prepared and love God. Amen? It is our duty to praise the Master of all, to ascribe greatness to the author of creation, for he made us unlike the nations of the lands and has not placed us like the families of the earth. He has not made our portion like theirs and our lot like all their multitudes. And we bend the knee and bow and acknowledge, thanks guys, acknowledge our thanks before the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He. He stretches out heaven and establishes earth's foundation, and the seat of His glory is in the heavens above, and the presence of His power is in the most exalted heights. He's our God, there's none other. True is our King. Nothing is beside Him, as it is written in His Torah. You shall know this day, take to your heart, that the Lord He is God. In the heavens above, on the earth below, there is.
Amen.